What is going on? I want to welcome you from half court for today, Wednesday, November 30th, 2022. I'm your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my boy, Jeff Iafede. Jeff, my boy, good to see you as always. We're already at the end of November. We're almost at the end of 2022, man. Insane.
Yeah, we're in the thick of things, boys. Over 20 games so far of the Pistons season. A lot to talk about, a lot to evaluate. And just kind of summarizes how long we've been doing this because it's already over 20 games in. Soon enough, it'll be the end of the season. So things go by very quickly.
Yeah. So, like, Jeff, when you say it's thick, is it 3 or 4 C's?
I'm gonna go with 5.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with a sturdy 5.
Man, at that point, you just got to get down with the thickness. But also, speaking of the thickness, we are joined by the best Polish meat hammer in the land, my boy, Troy Sergey. Troy, in the first take, I called you an Indiana Hoosier, and apparently that made the service we use so upset that it crashed. So, I'm not going to do that again. But, Troy, it's good to see you as always, my friend.
Good to see you too. And yes, I'm not a Hoosier. I cheer for the Michigan State Spartans, Sean. But yeah, I'm living out here in Indianapolis. Go Pacers, kind of.
So I don't. Why? All right. So here's why I don't get why you're so offended. Because here's the thing. I came in. Obviously, let's address. I'm wearing the Michigan hat. Okay. For the first time in my adult life, in my practical life, because it's been 22 years since Michigan has beaten Ohio State in the shoe. Right? It hasn't happened in a long time. They finally have done it. So, therefore, I'm here to commemorate that moment of Michigan overcoming Ohio State. And Troy gets all defensive of, don't be saying anything about MSU now, Sean. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm just celebrating what Michigan did. We're about to go by the way, we're about to go win the Big Ten championship.
Which you are, yeah.
Potentially go in the college football playoff and perhaps get to a national championship game. I don't know if we're going to be able to do anything beyond that because of the depth of college football and how good Georgia is. Because holy, but that's a whole other conversation. Jeff, I don't know. You know more about college football than I do, so you can tell me what their chances are in that point.
I like their chances. I really do. But hey, you got to handle the big bad wolf in Purdue. All right. Yeah. Purdue, listen, the big bad wolf. Don't sleep on Purdue.
I mean,
but anyway,
you don't overlook your opponent. You don't overlook your opponent. That's fair.
This is a basketball podcast.
You're not wrong.
And things are getting good in the NBA. Games are getting more competitive. Playoff seeds matter towards the end. And really, this time of the year, these games right here that we're watching, they're going to dictate if some teams are going to be a 7th seed or a 3rd seed.
Yeah.
And we are all here for it.
Hey, at least we're not national media and you talk about the Lakers, even though they completely suck.
So, guys, let's get into our first topic. The Los Angeles Lakers are currently on. No, I'm kidding. No, but this is from Half Court, where we do talk all things NBA, but we start with talking to the Detroit Pistons. If you like that, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the podcast, be sure to share with your friends, but also be sure you join the conversation down below and be sure you're going to check us out on all the other social media platforms because we're making a lot of really good short content. You can check out on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, wherever the you want to find that. But also you can follow us on Twitter at Sean Halfcore, at Jeff Iafrady, and at Troy Sergey 44. But with that, guys, let's get into the conversation. I want to start because Troy's father, a man that I've met in person a couple times now, a very sweet man, said that he is tuning in the podcast and he wants to showcase, this. And I knew Troy was good in high school. I knew he made jokes that he kind of looks like Bojan Bogdanovic or that his game is similar to Bojan Bogdanovic. I saw this clip and I'm full on convinced that Troy's just Bojan Bogdanovic. So with that, we're just gonna watch and behold. Troy, can you give the backstory, like who you're playing, do you remember this game?
Yeah, this is my 10th grade year. We're playing Escanaba, Michigan.
Escanaba?
Yeah, I scored 26 points this game. This is three of the 26 here. My teammate here at the you can see him right behind, right below the basket. He has the ball and he takes a ridiculous layup, and it's going to go out of bounds. I save it at the last second. My buddy Jevons gets the ball, realizes I'm in the bleachers, takes it right back. I Bojan the 3.
That's money.
That's Kyle Korver. That's Kyle Korver-esque right there.
Dude, he's got the Kyle Korver haircut and everything too.
And the Bojan number.
That quick release.
Oh, look at that. Right at the top. That is That's just fundamental right there.
Smooth.
Ooh,
I
Troy.
appreciate it, Sean.
Troy, I'm going to give you a brand new nickname that I'm totally just creating on the spot that no one else has ever made up before. I'm going to call you the Big Fundamental.
Wow, Sean, that's the most original thing I've ever heard in my life.
Guys, let's talk to the Detroit Pistons because there is a lot to discuss. It seems like in the world of Pistons land these days, it seems like it's one step forward, two steps back with the way this season's going. Specifically, we're seeing guys play really well. Specifically, Alec Burks and Marvin Bagley have almost been better than we even anticipated they would be. According to James Edwards III, the Pistons haven't lost a double-digit game since Alec Burks has returned to the lineup.
Yep.
And in addition, Marvin Bagley seems to be improved on both ends of the floor. He's playing really confident on the offensive end, and it seems to me like he's been better at hovering around the basket, and it seems like he's less of a liability on the defensive end. His block numbers are up from last year as well. Like he's playing, he's technically averaging 4 less minutes, and he's technically doubled his block average. Granted, it's from 0.4 to 0.8. So it's not like he's not like he's, like prime, like Dikembe Mutombo or anything.
It's better.
But I mean, we've seen and we talked analytically before that he's good at turning shots at the rim, right? It was just about him staying near the rim. And I think, listen, like he obviously when he played against like DeAndre Ayton, we were getting pummeled in the paint. But I mean, DeAndre Ayton just won Player of the Week in the Western Conference. I mean, he was pummeling everyone in the paint. But guys, looking at how they've played, it's a damn shame that we can't couple that with obviously with Cade, currently with Ivey, but even now, Bojan Bogdanovic out for quite a while as well. Guys, I mean, people are going to say, "Oh, well, the Pistons are just tanking." They're pretty much just being forced to tank right now.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, obviously they're going out and competing and still trying to win games. And to their credit, they're staying competitive and getting better. It's just they're 5-17.
Yeah. And you're looking for that player development. It's hard when you don't have Cade and Jaden Ivey. I mean, you're still getting guys like Killian, Marvin Bagley. Isaiah Stewart goes out with that toe injury. It's unfortunate, but there's still a little bit of that player development. But you got a lot of veterans playing really a lot of minutes. And for Burks over the last 10 games, to give you 16 points per game, shooting over 40% from three. I think that's a guy that I would want here long term, no doubt.
Right. Now,
we saw some of that production too, of course, last year with New York with Burks, and even really his whole Utah tenure before that. And he's just a guy
that he's been.
Right, it's what he's been, and I think with the role that he has now, especially with such an injury-depleted Pistons roster right now, we're able to rely on him in ways that he's never even really had in his career, even when he's been playing on good level, solid role play levels on both of those teams. I think Sean, that's a great way of putting it as far as the Pistons right now forcing to tank, because really the only way that we would have been even remotely competitive, like even the short conversations we had about potential play-in team, like a 10th seed, would have been high max performance from Cade and Ivey and Saddiq. And the fact that those guys aren't even getting minutes now because of injury, the discussion of even that 10th seed is long, long gone.
Yeah, most definitely. And, you look at the cumulative injured list by teams. Currently, if you look at the ranked of the most injuries by team in the league right now, the Pistons are currently third, tallied up with a total of 11 thus far this season. So, I tweeted out a list of all the players that have been injured. So, with that, that's just the state. And I know we've talked a little bit about the health before, obviously with Cade, but it does look like apparently Cade is listed. Jaden Ivey's listed as questionable for the next game on Tuesday. So as of this recording, Ivey could possibly be back in the lineup. And so with that, there's still a lot of opportunity for competitive games. But guys, I mean, there is also the silver lining that this team does seem like they're going to be in in for a potential top 3 pick in this lottery.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know how valuable that is. I mean, I can't lie to you. It would be a mother dynasty if Victor Wembanyama was in this lineup. I'm not stupid of that, right? But at the same time, I know that's where a lot of people are going to be looking. But again, I think you're going to be missing a lot of really fun, good basketball if you're not focusing on the now too, because they were competitive as hell against Phoenix. Even with Alec Burks having to play the second point guard, they were competitive as hell against Cleveland. Like they're playing better than they should be right now.
Right. And with that, the fact that we are playing better than we should be, I want to remind our audience too about this draft. We've talked about how deep it is, but even you mentioned the top 3 idea in this draft. Now you can make a legitimate case that if Victor Wembanyama never existed, projected 2 and 3 could easily be in any other year number 1 caliber players, right? The guy from Bama, forget his name, and then the guy in the G League, is it Scott?
Scoot Henderson.
Scooty, yeah. Both of those guys in any other year than this year with such a deep draft would be a unanimous number 1 pick. And the fact that they're in the same draft makes it unique of them going 1, 2, and 3. So if we land a top 3 pick, we're basically landing a number 1 pick in any other year, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's Brandon Miller from Alabama, by the way.
Yeah, that's his name.
Yeah, it is awkward though, because one thing that is interesting is if you look at the current landscape of this draft, if the Pistons hypothetically, and this is a far further down the road conversation. This is just an interesting side note. If the Pistons don't get the number 1 pick and get the potential of getting Victor Wembanyama, they're going to be choosing from a lot of guards among the top of that draft class. So would Detroit draft yet another guard? Is going to be an interesting storyline that we would have to look at down the road. But for now, I mean, let's talk about the guards that we have in-house, because guys, Killian Hayes is balling right now. And Jeff, you and I made a video earlier this week, detailing about how he's just been much more crisp with his passing. He's been much more decisive with the shot selection. But guys, he's showing some attitude too. He's fighting back. He's pushing back. This is a guy that I've been waiting to see since he's come into the league. And it seems like not only is Killian growing up as a player, he's growing up as a person right in front of our eyes too.
Yeah, he's oozing confidence, man. And we talked about this in the video. I mean, coaches can take your confidence or they can give you confidence. And with Killian,
oozing confidence.
Oozing. The last couple of games, the Killian I'm watching, I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow. Not only is he playing more confidently, yes, offensively and defensively, but the mentality he's approaching it with, to your point, talking trash, knowing the role he's playing, right? Your starting point guard, Cade's out probably for the entire season, so his role gets elevated, and there's a lot more of an offensive burden, defensive burden on his shoulders, and he's handled it very, very well. So for Killian, he deserves nothing but praise considering how he started the season and how poorly he was shooting. And we talked about it on the pod. Is it Killian? Is it – because people were quick to jump off the Killian, not saying there was a bandwagon, but very quickly to turn their backs on Killian and say, well, this experiment's over. Get rid of Killian.
Oh, no, Jeff, let's just say it. They said he stuck. They said he sucked. They were writing him off. They said he was a bum. They were saying he was a bust. They said he should be out of the league.
It's just not
he should
fair.
be in the G League.
It really isn't. And this is 15 games in, and now look at the last 10 games.
This was, Jeff, not even. It was 11 games in.
It's just, it's premature. We said it was premature at the time. Allow him time to grow. Because he's allowed 2.5, 3 years. But on top of that, how he started to be in a role he was in 2 years ago, and now to be a guy off the bench, your seventh man with 2 ball dominant guys like Cade and Jaden Ivey. He kind of had to find his role. He's playing a lot of off ball. Now Cade goes out, Jaden Ivey misses some games, and Killian, you put the ball back in Killian's hands. And again, he's a playmaker. He's making passes, and I know he's been doing this for 3 years, but just watching Killian, man, he is a beautiful passer.
It's different now, though, man. There's something different about it now. Just with the fact that he can also score, it makes his passing even more of a threat.
Because now you're an offensive threat, right? Defenses have to respect that. His passing ability, we know it's great as it is. But you talked about earlier in the year, not only was he was struggling shooting the ball, but it looked like defensively getting a lot of personal fouls. Just it just seemed like him struggling offensively kind of led to him struggling defensively. And now it's the complete opposite. He's playing better on both sides. So all credit goes to Killian, but I got to give some credit to Dwayne Casey because he said it. His leash is very long. Killian needs to stop putting pressure on himself and just go out there and play basketball. Just go hoop. And he's done exactly that. And he's been playing well over the last couple of games. So, or really the last stretch of games. So all credit goes to Killian and the guys around him, man. He's been playing really well.
Yeah. I mean, Troy, if we've seen anything with that, with this season, just in general, I think, like we bring up the Lauri Markkanen case of you don't write off anybody, right? I mean, we're for God's sakes, we might see Geno Smith go to the Super Bowl, right? Like that's this is 2022. Anything can happen. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And the first 11 games this season, Killian sucked. But ever since then, he's averaged 11.3 points, 5.6 assists, 3.5 rebounds, 41% from the field, and 38% from beyond the arc. Even though that's still not amazing numbers, it's a far cry from both where he was in his career and where he was at the beginning of this season. This is a drastic improvement.
Right. It absolutely is. And that's what I was going to say too, is you compare the guy from even 4 weeks ago to the guy now, it's a different guy. But I think the one thing that I see with Killian is he's learning how to score in this league. And we watched flashes of him before the NBA overseas, how he was able to score the ball. And I feel like, if we watch some of those highlights, we watch the Killian we see today, there's similarities, which is great. I mean, it's the same guy. I would hope there's similarities, but we haven't been seeing really that full potential of a top 10 pick the past 2 years. I hate to say it, but now we are. Now we're seeing a guy who, okay, now I see why we picked this guy at number 7. His ability to get to the ball, to get to the rim, score, in the paint, but also hit that mid-range shot. And that's a lost arc in this game. And we're seeing that from Killian the past few games too. And his confidence with passing the ball as well. And he looks like an NBA player. And that was my big critique of him even 2 or 3 weeks or, 4 weeks ago now, was, man, this guy just doesn't look like he belongs in this league. But now he certainly does. And he's making
And on top of that, too, to put up, we had multiple games with 3+ steals. This is a guy who defensively, we can talk about how better the Pistons have been recently defensively. A lot of that credit also goes to Killian. I mean, let's be honest here. A lot of teams they faced lately, he's been doing a good job guarding the opponent's best player, the best guard. And that's kind of been his role. So for Killian, offensively, he's looked better shooting the ball because that was the biggest thing. Changed his jump shot. He didn't shoot the ball well to start the year. Oh, is his jump shot broken? And to shoot 40% basically over the last 10 games, whatever it is, that's progress, whether you like it or not. So again, Killian's been doing a hell of a job, man. Excelling at his role. That's all you got to do. What are you asked to do, and can you excel at it? Killian's done that. Yeah,
for sure. And one last thing. What the hell has Kevin Knox been doing, man? What the heck is this guy?
Listen, Sean, Troy, we watched the Rico Hines footage.
Big time.
He looked like Kevin Durant in the Rico Hines footage.
This was a guy, another top 10 pick though, guys.
I made jokes about that at the time, and I'm gonna be honest. I gave Kevin Knox some criticism early on. I didn't want to see any Kevin Knox, but I
was an adamant Kevin Knox doubter. I firmly believed. I thought since he couldn't make it work in Atlanta, I was like, all right, well, he's got to be done. Nah, I'm starting to think Atlanta might not be as tied down as we thought they were. Because even Kevin Huerter left Atlanta and went to Sacramento and looks like Klay Thompson.
Yeah, he's balling too. Kevin Knox, man, he's been playing really well. I got to admit it. Kevin Knox, my apologies go out to you. Early on in the year, I was sick of seeing you on the court, but now actually I don't mind it. With all the injuries, Kevin Knox getting his role elevated, man, he's been shooting the hell out of the ball. So Kevin Knox deserves some praise as well.
Yeah, for sure. And Troy, that's been the most impressive thing, I think, has just been, we know that he can be an athlete. We know that with his physical attributes, that there's upside on the defensive end. But the stroke of late has just been impressive, and he's been confident.
Right, absolutely. And I think, again, he's a guy that we know what his potential was going into the league. And some of these guys, and I feel like, Marvin Bagley even too, can put in this conversation of, it might be the situation of wrong team, going to and wrong fit. And with that, unfortunately, that becomes struggles, but also maybe not just the wrong team, but they need that 2, 3, 4 years to get in the groove of what the NBA is all like. And I think Kevin Knox has gotten that, and now we're seeing his potential rise. So, of course, yeah. I mean, he's a guy, too, that, I feel like has flashes of what Brooks has been for us this year, of just a guy that can score the ball at will. And a guy that we can rely on to score the ball at will. We need consistency, especially with guys injured like we do on this roster. We need some type of consistency. And if it's a guy like Kevin Knox that we're going to, I say let's go to him.
Well, and even then, guys, we talk about like writing guys off and saying definitive facts about like what a guy's career is going to be. Kevin Knox is 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying like this definitive statement about what his NBA career is going to be or where he's going to be at. The guy's 23. Like, I know the runway is so long
and
on that guy's athletic journey. Like, just as far as like what he has to go.
And you took a flyer on him too. Like, think about it from the financial side of things. Like, how much Troy's paying Kevin Knox. Like, even if he works out, you sign him to an extension, but a short-term extension. But he's playing well. He's outplayed his dirt cheap contract so far.
He's on a 2-year, $6 million contract, and the second year is a team option. So
yeah, that's
the worst case scenario. He's out. Like that. That's
and if you want depth, you get him at $3 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then if you want him back on a team-friendly deal, yeah, I'd take him back at $3 million.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, and then from there you could talk about a team-friendly extension from there as well. So, yeah, man, I think that there's still like a lot of really good basketball being played, and another guy, that's going to be stepping up. Isaiah Livers. I'm excited to see what he's going to do with the elevated role. Stepping in for Bojan, seemingly in that starting spot. I've been impressed, like Jeff, we talked about this a little bit in our video as well. I've been not just impressed with like Isaiah Livers and like what he can do as like a jump shooter. And like, even though he's been struggling a little bit on that end, I'm confident that the shot will come, but his defensive effort and his defensive ability, I think he could be a top-notch defender in this league.
He's had 2 games over the last 5 games with 3 blocks. He had 3 blocks against Denver. He had 3 blocks against the Cavaliers. Dude, he's 6'7". And the shooting ability, I'm not too concerned about. I think he's had a long enough career, especially at college. You know what he can do. I think he'll come out of that. But the biggest thing with Isaiah Livers, and this is the reason why I advocated for him before the season to even possibly be in the starting lineup, is because of what he does defensively. And again, give credit to these guys for how well the team's been playing lately defensively. Isaiah Livers deserves some of that, the piece of that pie as well. I think what he's been doing, his versatility, his athleticism, which is something I don't think gets talked about enough. I mean, he's getting chased down blocks. The guy he's a good shooter. Typically when you hear that, he's a good shooter. He can play defense. You don't really see the other things, right? The leadership that Isaiah Livers brings, the athleticism he brings. There's a lot of things I like about Isaiah Livers. He's, like I said in the video, man, he's a coach's player. Every coach will love a guy like Isaiah Livers. He does all the right things. He plays defense. He can shoot the ball. He can play off ball. He's great. He really is. And from a financial side of things too, 2nd round pick.
I think John Beeline made it like a requirement. I was like, all right, guys, I'll come to Detroit on one condition. You got to get Isaiah Livers if you get the chance.
Got to get my boy.
I have to.
And he was available. He was available in the 2nd round.
Yeah. Steal. Absolute steal.
Absolutely.
Troy, what do you think of his defensive upside? I mean, we talk like, offensively, like, I'm not sure what his game can be. I think, I think even if he's just a catch and shoot 3 guy, like that's still insane value in this league. If you can put I don't think his role is ever going to necessitate him to put the ball on the floor on a consistent basis. However, if that is something he can develop, that's obviously a big plus, right? But what do you think of his defensive upside?
Right, and I think that's a good way of putting it. But I think with Dwayne Casey as your head coach, as far as player development, there's always potential for any area of the game with any player that we're talking about.
Oh, for sure. And Isaiah Livers is a hard worker too. So
right.
I'm not putting a cap on him. I'm really not.
That's where I'm getting at with it. So if you have the work ethic like Livers does, then you have the coaching personnel like a Dwayne Casey at your feet, but also kind of the accountability. I feel like as some of the older guys like a Saddiq Bey and even a Cade Cunningham in your corner of knowing that you are these guys backups in a way, but these guys are your teammates too, pushing each other in practices, pushing each other in the off season. I think his upside is a true role player, 3-and-D traditional guy. Like, it seems like so many players in this league have a spot in this league for that exact reason. So, I don't think it's worth a ton, diving super deep into, but I feel like with the right work ethic, with the right coaching staff, and the right understanding of his role with this team, he is a 5+, 6-7+ year NBA player if he gets that right.
Wait, Troy, don't say the right coaching staff, because I was told by many people that these guys can't coach. That's what I was told.
No, I am not one of those.
So wait, they can develop players. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying both. I mean, this is a great coaching team. This is a great player developing team.
Just making sure. I listen. I was told something different. I don't know.
You were told somewhere on Elon Musk's app. Is that right there?
Yeah.
House that Elon Musk built. Yep, that's exactly it. I mean, listen, man. I don't want to keep harping on that point too much, but again, what the hell do you want this man to do? Where's the reinforcements, man? Everyone keeps going down. Come on.
Dwayne should just be able to just throw it all together and just patch it up. Then just let's go win 40 games, fellas.
Yeah, Dwayne's just all right, who am I losing tonight? Who's gonna be out for the season tonight? Just waiting.
Right.
Man.
Or you could be like the Rockets, like we talked about, and be 100% healthy and still suck. I mean, you could be them as well. Shout out to the Rockets fans. I know you guys are tuning in.
Yeah, so let's talk about them a little bit because they're an interesting conundrum, because we talk about how we're looking at the bottom of the standings currently, and the Detroit, just riddled with injuries. Orlando just riddled with injuries. The Rockets pretty much have their full roster. They have everybody. They just suck. They're just not good. They're currently they currently have 5 wins. They're 5-14, and at the bottom of the Western Conference. Only teams above them every team's above them, but the teams that they're in the area of are the San Antonio Spurs and the Los Angeles Lakers. But I mean, guys, Jeff, you were talking about it. You were watching these guys it seems like every night they're just arguing with somebody. It's just it's an interesting culture over there, man. I don't know. Obviously, if they got Victor Wembanyama, the talent ceiling would be super high, but the egos between Jalen Green and Victor Wembanyama would be insane.
And Kevin Porter Jr. as well. They need an adult coach. And I'm sorry, Stephen Silas, I got a lot of respect for him as a person, and he's not in the greatest situation. But you need somebody like a veteran to come in there and be like, listen, all this stuff needs to quiet down. We're going to win some games here. Because you see, and I wish this would be funny too, and I was going to ask you this while you were talking, do beefs count as wins? Because they have 5 wins, but if you could count how many beefs they've gotten into over the last, so far this season, you probably could add about 4 or 5 more on there. So they might be at 10 wins, to be honest with you. I saw the other day them getting into it with, who was it? Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. Saw that clip go around. And then Kevin Porter posted in a story, called him little man, Trae Young. It's like, dude, listen. And it's not like Trae's never heard that before. But anyway, if you're talking to a guy like Trae Young, who's had the success he's had in the postseason, and he's been a majority, the guy's a killer, a certified killer. You better come correct, because you might have beat him in the regular season, but they're going to the playoffs, and you guys are probably going home. So again, before you talk trash to great players, just please understand who you're dealing with. That's why the Rockets, I like the talent they have. Hey, listen, I'm a big Jabari Smith guy. I loved him before the draft. I like Jalen Green. I like what he can be. Not a big Kevin Porter guy. I have respect for him, but I don't like the attitude he has.
Well, but he's just not a point guard.
He's not a point guard. So Rockets got a lot of things to figure out. But yeah, I just over this season so far, you've seen all these things, the beefs these guys are getting into. Like, if the Pistons are over here just working, and I respect that, and that's what I love about the team we currently have. They don't talk; they let their games talk for them, and I love and appreciate that.
Well, and and Troy, they have some guys that are playing, some pretty good basketball. Obviously, Jalen Green has showed the flashes and has shown the reasons why he was drafted number 2 overall. You could still make the argument that Evan Mobley is the currently the better player, but even then it's year 2, right? But also they have Jabari Smith Jr., who's looked okay. He's looked okay. I think, Alperen Sengun is pretty good, but he's also not the greatest fit with Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. because he can clog up the lane, and those guys need space to operate in the lane.
Nobody's a fit with those two. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
They need a point guard. They do.
But also to Jeff's point, I think Steven Silas took the opportunity because I don't think he would have gotten a head coaching job otherwise if the situation wasn't as bad as it was when he took the job.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, I just don't like, this is just a can't win situation for Steven Silas. And in my opinion, I think this is just a team that's like just waiting to finally get that number 1 overall pick to finally give them some form of direction. But I think the reality is that I think you're seeing throughout the league, the teams that truly have directions are the ones that have cultures first.
Right. Absolutely. And the Rockets haven't shown that, especially I was mentioning before we got on here, even last year's kind of chaos with that team too. Kevin Porter leaving one game to go outside, left the locker room, left the arena in his car. Just stuff like that it doesn't seem like even the guys on the team, even the players with potential, really want to be there or feel like that they're heading in the right direction. I mean, I just haven't seen any of the fan base or the players talk about what the future lies ahead. With the Pistons, we talk about that, right? The Pistons are under a coaching staff and an organization, even under, Troy Weaver, who has the winning culture being built up and the characters being built too. And we just aren't seeing that in Houston.
And Troy, on top of that, too, what does Detroit have currently with their franchise player that the Rockets don't have with their franchise player? Leadership.
Let's hear it. Yeah,
leadership. And that's why Cade is, and it will always be, looking back at that draft, the number 1 pick. Yes, he's the best player, but what he brings as a franchise player, Jalen Green is not that. He's not a leader. Those guys can score buckets and be entertaining, but when it comes to accountability, that's why you take a guy like Cade Cunningham, because he's going to hold his teammates accountable. He lets his game do the talking. Guys follow him. He's a leader. Jalen Green, it doesn't really – it's almost like a daycare, to be honest with you. That's kind of what's going on in Houston, and it's not attributing to wins. So, again, they got talent, but they need a leader. They need leadership. They do. They got to get some veterans in there, man. True veterans.
Right. And, it's one of those things where I know that they're, like, and I don't blame them in the fact that they're in the talent acquisition phase. And, for the most part, they do have talent. They do have pieces. But again, until they make a definitive decision on whose franchise this is, who's going to be in the backcourt, because I think to maximize Jalen Green's talents and maximize his abilities, you need that floor general point guard and that guy that can handle the ball and put Jalen Green in spots and situations where he doesn't have to handle the ball all the time. I know he's the type of player that's going to want to handle the ball at all times, but I think we've seen, like the guys who are great scorers that can go out and truly like win championships are the ones that aren't handling the ball all the time, aren't the ones that are just going out there trying to play hero ball and score and just like carry. Like, you need those guys around you, right? Yeah. So it's just one of those things where the roster's it's just a weird compilation, but it's a talented compilation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You need someone who can get you easy buckets. I think that's what Jalen Green needs, man. I mean, yeah, he likes the ball in his hands, but he needs someone who can get him easy shots. And Kevin Porter, he can pass, but is he a true playmaker? Both of your point guard and your 2 guard are both shoot first guards. Like it's an awkward. That's why the Jabari Smith fit. We all talked about it too. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I love Jabari, but I didn't think he'd thrive in Houston. He's been struggling so far. So it is. They got talent, but it's just awkward how they're all fitting together. It really is.
100%. Now, guys, let's talk about the current landscape of the league, where everything's at. Let's check in on the standings and let's talk about just like the world of the NBA, because there's a lot of really interesting things happening. So first of all, on the Western Conference side of things, it seems like things are starting to look a little bit more normal, or as far as things go, a little bit more like what we predicted at the beginning of the season. Because as things currently stand, let me pull up right here the standings. In the Western Conference, the Phoenix Suns are currently the number 1 seed on a 4-game win streak at 13-6. Meanwhile, the Utah Jazz are currently on a 4-game losing streak and are currently 3-7 in their last 10. Mike Conley's been injured. They're starting to miss a little bit more of their shots. They were hitting threes at an astronomical rate to start this season. So it seems like they're starting to kind of, snap back to reality. Also, one more thing I want to point out: the Warriors 7-3 in their last 10, and they're above 500. They're going to be rising up these standings very quickly. But guys, what are your
Pelicans
thoughts?
too? The Pelicans are rising up, Sean.
Yeah, and that's the team Sean's been high on, and I think, there's no reason why they can't be a contender in the West this year, especially the way Ingram's been playing too. We haven't even really touched on how well he's had a season this year, and a little bit we've seen with Zion too. Good stuff.
Yeah, but guys, some teams that are currently, in subpar situations are not where they should be. I mean, we're talking about like the positives in here. The Dallas Mavericks have been. Let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks, because it's interesting, because when they got to the Western Conference Finals, it was pretty apparent that it was off the heels of just amazing play from Luka Doncic, but also I think a lot of people really underestimated how good of a basketball player Jalen Brunson is.
Yeah.
Last spring around playoff time, when I was talking about Jalen Brunson and the potential of bringing him into Detroit, and obviously, knowing what we know now, I'm very glad we went in a different direction. However, the reason why I was tantalized, guys, was because the guy was really good at basketball.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's just a good point guard.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, and it's pretty apparent that Luka misses that guy that can handle the ball alongside him. And quite frankly, if you look at the roster, who's the second best player? Tell me.
Christian Wood.
Even then, is he?
I was told Christian Wood, but now apparently Jason Kidd doesn't trust him enough to play him at times. So this is the problem with the Dallas Mavericks right now. You get rid of Jalen Brunson, and that's somebody that allowed Luka to take some plays off during the regular season, and he can go beast mode in the playoffs. You're putting so much of a burden on Luka now. By the time playoffs get here, I don't think they're going to make it, but let's say they were, he was going to be gassed to be able to do what he did last year. So Jalen Brunson, he was so important. As much as listen, I was big on dissing Jalen Brunson coming to Detroit, paying him that money, but his value with Dallas cannot be undermined. I mean, he meant a lot to what they did for his ability to shoot the ball, play off ball, and just simply be another option. They miss him. They miss him so much. And that honestly, for Luka's sake, they got to get him a true two, somebody that can play alongside him, because it ain't Christian Wood. I'll tell you. Did
you say, Jeff, you straight up don't think the Mavs will make the playoffs?
We'll see. Maybe they get in the play-in.
I'm not sure if I'm ready to go that route yet, but I know where you're coming from.
Maybe they get in the play-in. I'll say that. If you're telling me will they make the playoffs, I'll say no. Maybe they get in the play-in. Maybe they sneak in. But if you're talking to me, do they stand in a seed? They're going to have to fight to keep that spot. I'll say that.
Sure.
I mean, so the only way that they get to, the way they get to the playoffs is through Luka Doncic, right?
That's it.
I mean, like that's really the only thing that's really the only thing that they have. But I mean, at the same time, if you look at what he's, if you look at like how great he is, like he's capable of MVP level play, and that's not a question. But guys, we keep talking about the storyline with the Mavericks and the question, can Luka keep the foot on the gas, because he's going to Slovenia every summer to play basketball for his home country, because if he doesn't, then they're not going to qualify, and it means a lot to him to represent his country, right? But also, on the other hand, Eurobasket and, the making it to the Western Conference Finals, like this guy's just been playing 30 plus minutes a night year round.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How is he not going to snap at some point? Where does this end?
Yeah, and he's not some incredible athlete in terrific condition like a LeBron or something like for Luka. For him, to put that much of a burden on him through 82 games and expect him to do that in the postseason, it's just not realistic. It really isn't. Not in today's NBA. Back then, maybe when you have that one franchise player that can do things for your franchise. Now it's a much deeper league. You have teams that have multiple stars. It's just different now. So for Luka's sake, they got to get him some help, man. They do, and it's this offseason to do it.
Yeah.
Unless they could trade for somebody, but who you trading? I mean,
well, and guys, it just comes down to the fact that you can't let this turn into a Dirk Nowitzki situation where you have this amazing generational talent for his entire career and he only wins one championship. Right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
like you just can't. Like you just can't.
You can't make the same mistake twice.
No, like he's just just an incredible player. He's just an incredible player. You got
a guy that we see once in a generation in some ways, as far as the actual type of position, right? Like an athletic guard who can score at will, who can rebound the ball, like a true all around point guard, like he is.
When's the last time we saw a guy out of the draft, like just literally year one, be as effective on the court as Luka was? LeBron?
Yeah. Right away.
Yeah, like right away.
Maybe Dwayne Wade, but not.
And elevate your team like that right away? Yeah, probably.
Well, D-Wade was solid, but he wasn't doing that in his rookie year.
Right.
Yeah. You know, like he was good. Like we knew he was going to be a stud. He wasn't doing that. And I mean, and guys, like Christian Wood, like we talk about like and listen, like you want to know what Jason Kidd's saying? Because I'll say it here. He doesn't try in the defensive end, man. He doesn't do the little things enough. He doesn't set screens. He's not a team guy. He's a bucket getter. And he doesn't do the little things on a consistent basis. Like, I get that he's flashy. I get that he's a fun player. I get all, like, that, he has talent and he has upside. But, guys, it's not a coincidence that he's only played on losing teams. It's not.
Yeah. No. And that's what Jalen Brunson, that's the difference between Jalen Brunson and a guy like Christian Wood. One of them affects winning more than the other. And whether you want to keep Christian Wood, now it would be nice if you had Christian Wood and Jalen Brunson, but trading those guys one for one, letting Jalen Brunson walk and acquiring Christian Wood, I just don't know how you expected the same result or anything close to that with the roster that's currently constructed. So Mavericks got a lot of self-reflection to do this offseason. Despite whatever happens this season, you still gotta reconstruct this roster a little bit, man. Well, Luka's way too good to be in this position. He really is.
Well, they went and they did the temporary fix of getting Kemba Walker as the new primary, as someone else who can like alleviate like the pressure of being like a secondary ball handler.
Right.
But from what we've seen the last time we saw Kemba Walker, he wasn't really that great. Yeah. And even then, is he going to fill in what Jalen Brunson did? Not nearly, right? And so you look at, like they're going to have to do something at the trade deadline. And I'm curious to see if they go down the direction of getting a guy like a DeMar DeRozan, or if they look at a guy like a Zach LaVine. I wonder if they, I'm just curious to see like what direction they go, because they tried having the skilled big next to Luka. They've had the skilled guards next to Luka. I'm curious what like a guy like like a DeMar DeRozan who can create his own shot, who can handle the ball, who doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands at all times. Like I feel like that would be an interesting fit. But at the same time, is that winning you a championship? Is that worth giving up significant assets for? Is that worth eating up your salary cap? Like that, that's the thing, is like they got to figure out something. But the other thing is, when have they ever had guys like come to Dallas? Like, when have they ever been a free agency destination?
Right. I mean, even when they were winning and having championship, aspirations, even when they went to the finals in 2006 with Dirk, that was a franchise that they really didn't get anyone even that next offseason either. So,
yeah. Also, speaking of DeMar DeRozan, let's talk about the Chicago Bulls. They are currently sitting at 8-11, 3-7 in their last 10. And currently, Zach LaVine looks like a shell of himself. DeMar DeRozan's good, but yet again, you can't really expect that MVP level DeMar DeRozan 2 years in a row. Lonzo Ball as of last week, is not running or jumping. I mean, guys, I mean, the Bulls, if they want to salvage any of this, they might have to look at blowing it up at the deadline. Like, seriously, consider it, because this Vucevic trade, guys, disastrous.
And this was a team too that even when they put all their pieces together last year, like I'm talking when we were talking about maybe early October 2021, before the season even started last year, and they just got a DeMar DeRozan, and we were looking at what this team is going to look like with Vooch because they made that move a few months earlier. We knew that they were putting all their chips in, and we knew that it was either this team goes to the conference finals, that's their peak potential, and we saw them have a good start to the season, but then didn't even get past the first round, not even close, especially against that Milwaukee team. So, this is a team that you would be a fool, and I say this towards the Bulls organization, to think that had automatic championship level potential right there and then with Alonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Vucevic, big three. I mean, especially with what the East is doing, you can't cash in when that's your only chips.
Well, and the other thing too, it's not a great look when the very first year of their new president of basketball operations, he goes out and makes these moves, goes and, does the Vucevic trade. Obviously, the DeMar DeRozan signing was a net positive. That's been, people called that the worst contract, in the NBA at the time when he signed it. That's clearly wrong. Like, that's clearly just not true. Zach LaVine has clearly been a bad contract, and there clearly needs to be a conversation about the Bull. Like, you want to talk about, like, because I know people were talking about like whether or not the Pistons should look at their training staff. The Bulls medical staff should be on the hot seat right now, because guys, because how many times? Listen, I'm thinking about making a video at some point talking about my story with my knee and like my history of knee surgeries and stuff. I have a little bit of a little bit more expertise on knee stuff than most people do. And Brian Windhorst says that I firmly agree with that. There's no such thing as a non-invasive knee surgery. It doesn't exist. Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine both had non-invasive knee surgeries. Guys, how are you getting something cut inside your body and it's non-invasive? It doesn't make
no.
And I get that you're trying to do the quick fix, trying to find a way to get back on the court as soon as possible. But guys, how many times have we seen it now? Blake Griffin, Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, taking shortcuts typically doesn't work out, especially with knee injuries. And I'm going to come at it from a different angle because I see where you're coming from, Troy, with this roster. I have a take where I believe that Lonzo Ball's injury had more of an impact than I think people think, looking at it and how much he meant to that team. Having, again, a true playmaker, someone who's excellent at defense. He actually improved his shot and could space the floor. When he went out early last year, that was it for me. I mean, looking at this roster currently constructed, are they a championship roster? Let's be honest. A lot of rosters right now in the NBA aren't championship rosters. It's just how it is. There's probably only a handful. But I liked what the Bulls had. I just think losing a guy like Lonzo and not really having anything to make up for that. Yeah, you have Alex Caruso. You have, who's the young guard they have? I can't pronounce his last name.
Ayo Dosunmu.
That's who it is. Like, they have some nice pieces, but I just think Lonzo's impact, it kind of gets slept on a little bit. But to your point, Sean, that medical staff, my goodness.
Well, not only was Lonzo that presence that they needed on the defensive end, but guys, what Lonzo doesn't get enough credit for, like, obviously he's not this amazing offensive player as far as scoring. He's a really good shooter. It's really ironic for the thing that he was made fun of coming into the draft, how good of a jump shooter he is now. But it's really the fact that he's a damn good floor general. Like when we talk about like true point guards, like one of the, like, he's a quarterback on an NBA court, And so how he was able to orchestrate that offense and put guys in positions, like, that's part of what made that team dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
You take that out, who's their true point guard? Ayo Dosunmu's, like, he's a good combo guard. He's not a point guard.
Mm-hmm.
Kobe White is not a point guard.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why even the Dallas Mavericks looked at Goran Dragic and said, "Hey man, if you were here, you wouldn't be playing." Just straight up. And currently in Chicago, he's getting about 18 minutes a game, about 8 points a game. He's currently 36. Andre Drummond exists. Listen, man, when you talk about basketball purgatory, the Bulls are the definition of basketball purgatory right now. Speaking of basketball purgatory, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Guys, we talked about how dog this team was a little bit ago. But man, they just keep finding new ways to top themselves. As of recording, currently on a 3-game losing streak, allowed 45 points in the first quarter to the Golden State Warriors on their home court. And then in the next game against Kristaps Porzingis and the Washington Wizards, I'm going to look this up because I want to make sure I get this right. Kristaps Porzingis in the first half was allowed to score, which, by the way, he scored a total of 41 points, his career high tonight. 29 of them in the first half. Only Steph and Luka have had a bigger first half this season. 7 of 9 from the field, 6 of 8 from beyond the arc. Guys, the body language is terrible. Anthony Edwards looks sluggish and like he just looks out of shape. I hate the outlook of this team, especially we talked about the only thing that could salvage it was Cat being a trade piece. First of all, one thing about making Cat a power forward, you kind of just took away one of the things that made him special, and that was the fact that he was a perimeter mismatch on 5s. Now, like 4s can kind of just lock him up super easily. But also, the other thing, he just had a non-contact calf strain tonight that looked pretty bad. So, guys, I don't think the Minnesota Timberwolves are even going to make the play-in tournament. I think it's chalked.
Yeah. You
Which
go,
then leaves room for the Mavs to come in, right? No, but we just knew that this team, unfortunately, didn't have what it took to be a true contender. Now we really like what we saw in Edwards, but to centerpiece your offense and your defense around Cat and Rudy Gobert, I just feel like, how does this organization not see a recipe for disaster?
Well, and the other thing too, though, Troy, they really were betting on Anthony Edwards with this too. Like, I think they saw what he did in that playoff series last year against Memphis, and they were like, oh, he's ready.
Right.
But as good of a player as he is, as awesome as we've seen him play, there might be moments where talent-wise he looks ready. The maturity's always been the issue with him. And that's been the issue with him. Like, not taking care of his body. Not coming into the season ready. Not, like there's the questions about his diet, which, by the way, there's immaturity issues with Cat with bringing that up in the public spotlight, right? Like this whole thing's a mess. But then the whole reason, the entire premise of why this was going to work was the anchor that Rudy was going to be on the defensive end. And they can't stop a nosebleed right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're pathetic. They're pathetic.
I got a lot of respect for Tim Connolly. I mean, when he was a general manager for the Denver Nuggets, obviously he built great things, but that trade for Rudy Gobert has got to be up there for one of the worst trades of all time. And that's a stain on his resume. But again, you trade for players, and let's just say, looking at it from a basketball fit, didn't really make sense. But let's say from Tim Connolly's perspective, he thought it'd be a great fit. The difference with the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves is you had Malone, right? And with the Timberwolves right now, Chris Finch, That's another guy. Talk about head coaches. I'm sick of at this point. I don't like Chris Finch. I don't think he's a great head coach. I think that was kind of on display. If you can't figure out how to make these players fit, I know it's a terrible fit, but they look terrible. There is no offensive system even implemented with this team currently. And if you want to blame how it's constructed, if you want whatever you want to blame, it's a disaster with the Minnesota Timberwolves right now. And the fact that you think Cat could play the 4 and guard 4s in a league that's going smaller, I got nothing for you. Well, and good luck with that Rudy contract because it's butt ugly, man. And you're paying it for a couple more years.
Who's the leader of this team?
Great question. It was Pat
I
Bev.
would have thought Cat.
It was Pat Bev.
Like, it should be Cat. They clearly want Anthony Edwards to step up. They clearly brought in Rudy Gobert to be that veteran presence.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just going to put on the screen just to remind ourselves what the Minnesota Timberwolves gave up.
Oh,
they gave up Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, Leandro Bomaro. I almost said Leandro Barbosa.
Me too. When I read that,
yeah, Walker Kessler, who by the way has actually been playing pretty well for the Jazz. Jared Vanderbilt, and then 4 first-round picks and a pick swap. So essentially 5 firsts.
Why?
For this guy, Rudy Gobert. That's neat.
I didn't realize the first-round picks attached to that.
And think about it, too. Walker Kessler is averaging more blocks per game than Rudy Gobert.
They gave up more firsts than the Cavs did for Donovan Mitchell.
Oh. Interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ask the Timberwolves fans who they'd rather have right now, Rudy Gobert or Donovan Mitchell.
Man, like, dude, imagine if they were like competent at negotiations. Like, imagine if they could have gotten Mike Conley in that deal.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that would have been way better.
Like,
way better.
How did you not get him to just like you couldn't have like thrown in like another 2nd-round pick to go get Mike Conley, like a veteran point guard?
Ah, just trade the farm for Rudy Gobert.
Guys, D'Angelo Russell, he's a franchise point guard, guys.
Yeah, D'Lo, man, I've always liked D'Lo. Like, I've always liked watching him, but yeah, you're right. I think the point you made about who's the leader on this team, I think that's a great point. Like, I'm trying to still think of one. I really don't think there's a single leader. It should be Rudy Gobert, but all I hear him talking about is, can the fans please stop booing us? That is what his leadership
is nuts.
So,
yes, it is. It is completely nuts.
So, Jeff, I don't want you to participate in this because you know the answer to this. Because we did this yesterday together. And so, Troy, I want you to do this exercise. Okay. I'm going to name the stat lines of 2 players. And I want you to tell me which player is better and by what significant amount. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I know where this is going, but I'm ready.
All right. Yeah. So you have a sense of where this is going, but player A, 11.7 points, 8.4 rebounds, 73% from the field, 2.1 blocks. Pretty good overall.
To me, like, should I guess the player?
No.
Okay.
That's player A. All right. Player B, 13.5 points, 12.7 rebounds, 62% from the field. However, his block averages currently are 1.4. So player A or player B, Troy?
Even though he's shooting a little less than player A, I'm going to have to take B because he's contributing more on the offensive end at the end of the day, and he is a guy that is getting some boards, double average.
But is it like a significant difference?
No, not at all.
What about the contracts, Sean?
All right, so let's reveal which players these are. All right, so what if I told you player A made 1.7 million this year? Okay. And what if I told you that player B was set to make, hold on, let me find his contract, 35 million this year? Which player do you like?
Yeah, now I change it to A.
So player A is Nick Claxton, and player B is Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, it's pretty shameful.
And Nick Claxton is making $1.7 million.
And I'm going to be honest, Troy.
They're so bad.
Nick Claxton was the first, like when I thought of somebody who might have been putting up the same numbers, that was the first. Like there's probably multiple guys, a ton of guys in the NBA that are putting up similar numbers. That was the first one I thought of. 1.5 million.
The contract tells you everything.
1.5 million.
Yeah.
That's less than what Kevin Knox is making.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Less.
Man. Oh.
I'm sorry, Timberwolves fans. My heart goes out for you.
It's unreal right now. But guys, before we get to should he, would he, I want to check in on the MVP race, because it's been as far as like seasons goes, like it's been a little bit weird, but like, I don't know about you, but if I'm thinking about like my top 3 players right now, I'm thinking Jason Tatum is on a different level.
That's mine.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is amazing. He's like, he's had like, he rarely has nights where he scores less than 30 points. He's playing on another stratosphere right now. He could actually put OKC in the play-in tournament this year. I mean, SGA is electric, man. And then Giannis Antetokounmpo, of course, has got to be in that conversation as well. Giannis has been sensational. I mean, guys, you look at what the Milwaukee Bucks have been doing. They're 14-5. A week ago, they were 28th in offensive rating. They were still winning like almost every game.
Yeah, I'm still picking Giannis just because of how well the Bucks are playing, and just, I mean, when you thought Giannis could do no more, he proves you wrong, right? And for me, that just shows you everything about his game and
who he is. Chris Middleton, by the way.
What's up?
Still no Chris Middleton, by the way.
Still no Chris Middleton. So even more weight on his shoulders, and he's answering the call of that. So for me, it has to be Giannis. Tatum, a good argument. Shai, a good argument. Throw in Joker there like always too. But you got to go. And Nuggets are second seed too. So Joker's production is having some results too. So I would probably put Joker actually my second and Tatum as my third.
But guys, Jason Tatum, in a season after they make the finals, in a season going into the season, they lose their head coach.
Right.
They've won 9 of their last 10. They're 16-4.
Yep.
And somehow Jason Tatum elevated his game to another level. Yeah, Jason Tatum's averaging 30.5 points. He's averaging 4.6 assists. He's averaging 7.9 rebounds. He's shooting 47% from the field. I mean, guys, he's a freaking monster.
I'm going out. That's my number one. That's my MVP. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Giannis deserves to be in that conversation, but Jason Tatum not only has the storyline to go with it, but how productive he's been. Like even today, would they put up like 120 on the Hornets in 3 quarters, and Tatum had like 40 of that? I mean, the guy is on another level with how he's playing. And you talk about leadership. There's one of them right there. Jason Tatum, not even the vocal leader, but goes on the court and executes. I was at the Pistons game this year. I watched Tatum put 40 on us. And I swear to gosh, man, watching Jason Tatum, he's so smooth. His game is so smooth. I love watching Jason Tatum, and I think he deserves some respect this year. So I'm gonna say he's number one for me, and Giannis is in that conversation as well. Those two guys, I think it's their MVP to lose, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think they've been sensational. Keep looking out for SGA, though. I think he's going to be in the conversation all year. I think I honestly think SGA will get MVP votes by the end of this season.
As he should. No question, man.
I would bet a lot of money that he will be a future MVP if it's not this year, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
He's got the game. He does.
And then you throw in, like another, couple draft picks this year. You throw in Chet Holmgren next year. You throw in, year 3, Josh Giddey. I mean, guys, the Thunder are going to be fun as hell. Shout out Cone.
Yeah, I was going to say that Cone will be happy.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, and guys, another player that's been, stepping their game up lately. I know we don't want to, talk too much about the Lakers, and I know we said we would only bring up the Lakers when there were things that were worthwhile to discuss. And I feel like the play of Anthony Davis is worth discussing because he's only missed 2 games. And to his credit, He's averaging 26.5 points, 12.8 boards. Guys, over the last month, he's averaged less than 1 3-point attempt per game. He stopped shooting the three. He's staying by the basket. Hallelujah.
And this is
because
kind of
it,
the New Orleans Anthony Davis that we saw, right? I mean,
Yep.
he's kind of going back to what we've known him always to be. So it's good to see.
Yeah. Especially with LeBron out, too. Like, you have a guy in LeBron who has the ball in his hands. Yeah, you're going to step out and be on the perimeter. But with him out, Darvin Ham, again, give credit to him, because that's one thing I think he was focused on with this Lakers team is getting Anthony Davis to be that really the tough guy, as he should be, and healthy. And I think he's doing that, abusing guys. I mean, the guy's way too talented to be stepping on the outside hitting threes. I mean, he's a freak. No one ever denied the talent he had. It was just really his availability and really his mentality. And I think he's changed both those things. So, yeah,
Well,
credit to AD.
Yeah, because at the beginning of the season, one of the narratives was he needs to demand the ball.
Yeah.
And he started to demand the ball. And when he's done so, I mean, he's been almost on another level. I mean, we were able to watch when they played the Pistons. Obviously, you know, it was difficult to watch because it's always sucks to see a guy go off against your team. However, I mean, he was facing pretty much Jalen, Duren, and Marvin Bagley all night. It was bound to happen. Anthony Davis went for 38 and 16 against Detroit. It was like I hadn't seen Anthony Davis that dominant since the bubble. And so to see Anthony Davis playing that dominant level again, because it's still not even. And then the crazy thing with it is it feels like he could still go another couple levels. Like that's the amount of talent he has. Like you feel like he could go further. Here's what I will say though. Anthony Davis needs. I'm glad he's stuck away from shooting the three, because he really needs to. Because in the month of November, he's averaged. I believe he's averaged less than 1 3-point attempt per game, and even then, he's still averaging 25% from beyond the arc. So he's a bad 3-point shooter. He's the worst jump shooter in the NBA over the last 2 seasons. Least efficient. So just stop shooting shots, stay by the basket, dominate, damn it. That's literally all he needs to do.
Yeah, he's too talented.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. So good to see him playing well again. And even, you know, I know people are starting to talk about like, there's reportedly belief within the locker room that they're a couple players away from being a legit contender. I still call BS on that. I think they're a couple players away from being a legit playing contender.
No, Sean, they're a couple players away from being a couple players away. I think that's the way to.
that is a great point. They need an overhaul, man. Oh my god,
that's how it is in LA. Really.
Yeah. But Troy, you know what time it is, my friend. We are reaching towards the end of the episode, and it is time for Should He, Will He?
Oh, what do you got, Troy?
Yeah, I got a good one today. And I think we might have even talked about him a little bit when we did that Legacy series before Jeff came on about a year ago. But actually, I'm not 100% sure. But anyways, we are today talking about our man, ISO Joe Johnson.
Joe Johnson. I do believe we did a little bit on him in the Legacy.
We did it. Yeah, I think we did Legacy, but the question of should he, will he for Hall of Fame, I do not think we touched on that.
Yeah, we probably also had like 16 listeners back then, so probably no one.
We got a whole new audience.
Yeah, but ISO Joe. I mean, this was a guy that played 20 years in the NBA.
Yeah.
In the I think it's a little generous to be honest with you, because I don't know if I count the
comeback year last year.
Yeah, I don't count the one game appearance he made
and the one basket he made.
Yeah, yeah, I don't count that. But I will say, guy played good basketball for a long time, multiple time All-Star, but Hall of Fame? I don't know, Jeff. I'm gonna start with you.
Yeah, well, I have mixed emotions because I love Joe. That was a player that I even watched. I mean, even for him to be in the league as long as he was and to be a 7-time All-Star, I think that deserves something, because there's only a handful of players that aren't in the Hall of Fame that have 7 All-Star appearances. But there's always a but. But
always
with Joe, for me, it's when you're looking at a player and you're trying to evaluate this. they might, and he had good years, a chunk of years, those all-star years, Joe, that's true ISO Joe. But then there's those years following that, and then there's those years before that. And again, for Joe, I think winning matters. And for Joe not to necessarily have the player that impacts winning, he was more just ISO Joe. He's entertaining to watch. A guy could get a bucket from anywhere. There's got to be some sort of, and I'm a little more harsher with the Hall of Fame. I think, people can look at a player and say, yeah, Joe should make the Hall of Fame. Listen, you call me a gatekeeper all you want. I think Hall of Fame, guys that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, there's two things. It's winning and what you've done, accomplishments on a personal level, all-star games, have you made all NBA teams, stuff like that. Like for Iggy, he's won a finals MVP. Like there's stuff you can check off for Iggy. For Joe, you don't really have that. And that's why it's tough. So for me, I'm going to say no, he won't, and no, he shouldn't. But he's right there for me. I got a lot of love for Joe. I just think not winning anything significant kind of hurts his case. But I mean, 7-time All-Star, you got to put some respect on his name. You got.
He's averaged 20 plus points a game 5 times. He really only averaged 25 once. Even at like the peak of his powers, was he a top 5 shooting guard in the league?
I don't think so.
I wouldn't say that.
With Kobe and D Wade and
yeah, it was tough.
Like that's the thing. Like it's like, listen, the guy like numbers wise, if you look at his overall resume, like you go, man, 7-time All-Star, like, career like 16 points a game, was an absolute bucket, has some pretty good highlights, was beloved in Atlanta, all this good stuff. What's the signature playoff Joe Johnson moment?
Doesn't exist.
his career in the playoffs, he's averaged 15 points a game. Like he's like, have they won, like, how many series did they he's won a few series in his career, but like for the most part he's been cheeks in the playoffs. They've just, like, the Atlanta Hawks were the team that, like, if they were at the top of the standings, it was like cool, but like, they're not going to make it like past the second round.
Right. Like, I don't even think he was on that team that was the first seed back in 2015.
Like, I never was scared of the Atlanta Hawks. Never. And like, I'm not trying to bash Joe Johnson here, but like, this is where we're getting to this awkward age of the league where, like, this was after the rule change, like in 04-05 with hand checking. And this is when the boom, like the offensive boom started to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is when guys started to average more and more. This is where we get the stats maybe being a little bit inflated. You know what I mean? Like, I think Joe Johnson is a good NBA player. I think he's on the brink of being a Hall of Famer. Should he know? What will he know? That's my opinion. Troy?
Yeah, I'm also going to go with should he know. But man, there's that inch in me that wants to go, will he yes, just because of the 7-time All-Star, the 20 plus points for all those seasons. Even that, I think he averaged 26 points to one season. I get it's one season, but I feel like his longevity of what he means to the NBA and what he meant to the Atlanta Hawks, and then Brooklyn Nets organization too, even when he was in his quote unquote downfall, it wasn't a massive downfall either. I just for the sake of being different, I'm going to go with yes, he will, but I'm still going to stick with both of you guys. No, he shouldn't, because of the reasons that you guys brought up.
Hey, listen, I got a lot of love for ISO Joe, man. You use him in 2K back then; it was cash, but still, will he make the Hall of Fame? No.
One of the best ISO players of all time.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, when you look at like the list of like when you look at like the guys that are like on the outside looking in on the Hall of Fame, it's like, it's just a long list, and it's like, yeah, like, he certainly like deserves like some love, but like, does he deserve to get in there over Chauncey Billups?
Right. Probably
Does he deserve to get in there over Sean Kemp? Does he deserve to get in there over Rasheed Wallace?
Right.
Robert Horry, Tim Hardaway, Paul Pierce?
Some good NBA players.
The truth, like, there's just a lot of guys, man. Like all I'm saying, like there's just like, especially like, like I understand it's like, yeah, like he definitely could. And I'm not like, if he does get in the Hall of Fame, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm saying like, I definitely enjoyed a lot of his time in his career, but at the same time, like it's, you know what he was? He was Bradley Beal before Bradley Beal. It's like, man, you are the star of a team that I don't think will ever win anything.
Yeah, I think he probably was a better teammate than Bradley Beal in a lot of ways.
Bradley Beal's like known as a great teammate.
Well, no,
Like,
I'm saying not like a nice guy, but I'm saying pushing your team over the hump as far as winning playoff series. Now, granted, I know Bradley Beal had that one year where they went pretty far with the Wizards, but I feel like Joe had a little more consistent playoff run, even though they didn't go too far.
I mean, but we're getting to hardcore semantics, and even then, even then, the other thing too, he had a better roster for like a longer time.
Right.
Like the one thing like that Atlanta roster was together for a while.
Sure.
And like, you know what the weird thing was, by the way, with that roster is it always seemed like it was like, hey, how is Atlanta going to improve?
Right.
We're like, what are you talking about? We're just going to keep running this back.
Right.
And just having the same team every year and not change anything about it. And the only thing they changed was their uniforms. And every time they did, they got worse. And anyway, that's the Atlanta Hawks in a nutshell for you. But Basketball Reference currently has Joe Johnson at a 50.6% Hall of Fame probability percentage.
Kind of a flip of the coin. Yeah.
If he makes it, it's that 7-time All-Star, man. That's a resume to be in the All-Star game for 7 times. I mean, that's
right. But even then, like at a certain point, like at what point does like the All-Star game thing like really matter in the Hall of Fame conversation? Like, because it's like part of it's a fan voted, but it's just semantics. You don't want to take accomplishments from a player, damn it. He did a lot of good things.
But you got a point.
Mm-hmm. You know what though? You know it's not like Joe Johnson from Half Court. We're like the Michael Jordan of podcast, damn it. But with that, man, this is From Half Court. Each and every week we talk all things NBA basketball, Detroit Pistons, you name it, we talk it. If you like it, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Be sure that you're following all of us on all of our social media platforms. Be sure you're following Jeff on Twitter at JeffIF80, Troy at TroySergi44, and if you're feeling so generous, follow your boy at Sean Half Court. But also be sure you follow us on TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. We out there, we're making good content, man. But with that, folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you subscribe.